Death, be not proud, be gone. You claim hell as yours, but the weight of your ambition rests on the shoulders of a peasant girl. Live as that girl, if you can, and you will understand. A human hope against hell? Now that sounds like a party. So, as Eternal Sabbath is fast approaching, and we are ever more getting closer and closer to the return of Satanus, aka Lucifer, and already the Father of Lies has shown his cruelty knows no bounds, as we have seen his followers already attack Hellslinger, Lady Death's son, from the previous chapter Demonic Omens, and based off the preview images of this upcoming title, we can see glimpses of Chaotica potentially falling to the darkness and being corrupted by Lucifer. So essentially, Big Red is wasting no time in attacking Lady Death where he knows he can hurt her the most, by attacking her family. Now, there was a lot of things to digest within these preview pages that got me excited, so much so that here soon I may do a breakdown of those images in the near future. But one thing that I have to admit that I was surprised by and way more hyped for than expected was Thanatos' resurgence onto the pages of Lady Death. Now, he had never really been a favorite character of mine, but maybe because he had been gone for such a long time, or perhaps it was the fact that he seemed to reflect more similarly to how he was portrayed in the past, and not so much when he was a part of the Sworn, the supernatural team that collaborates to save our world from life-destroying threats, the same team that Lady Death herself is a part of. So I guess what I mean when I say that he looks how he used to in a time past, I'm reminded of the Thanatos from the Chaos Comics era, and judging by the preview pages of Eternal Sabbath, this is not the Thanatos we've known so far within the recent chapters of Lady Death. For starters, he has teamed up with his father Lucifer, and seems very much content to take part in the destruction and chaos going on. Secondly, he has helped with the capture of Lady Satanus, which, may I remind you all, is his half-sister, and Lucifer's daughter, who had been living on Earth in New York City. Crazy enough, she had actually only joined the Sworn for the sole purpose of avenging her brother Thanatos, who was killed some time ago. But we will be getting to that shortly. And now you're probably all like, wait, what do you mean he died? How many children does Satanus have? What was Thanatos like before he was a part of the Sworn? And well, those are all excellent and fun questions, so I'm happy to go through it with you all. But before I get carried away, you know the drill. Feel free to give the video a like, hit the subscribe button, click the bell as well, so that way you can keep up with all the incredible Lady Death and supernatural beings of Chaos and Coffin Comics. I always appreciate your support, and for now, let's begin. So earlier I had mentioned to you all how Satanus was doing a good job of attacking Lady Death's familia, and well, our focus for this video will actually be on Lucifer's very own family, but primarily on his only legitimate son, Thanatos. I think how I will lay this one out for you all is we will go back to the very first time we are introduced to the character, and work our way forward to the present day. So Thanatos is a character going back to the Chaos Comics days. He first appeared in Lady Death monthly series Wicked Ways, and would have crossed paths with Lady Death after her return to Hell from Asgard, the Shining Realm. What makes Thanatos stand out is right away we are introduced to him as the first legitimate and recognized son of Lucifer and Leviathan. We don't know much of his childhood upbringing, but two things we can gather is Lucifer did not think very highly of his son, as he normally ignores his existence entirely. On top of this, Lucifer would have put Thanatos' mother, Leviathan, in a sleeping spell lasting centuries, and buried her resting place deep within hell. We never do get insight on Thanatos' feelings on this, but it very well could be one of the reasons, or perhaps the beginnings, of having a resentfulness towards his father. So while we don't know much of Thanatos' younger years, he is already an adult and established power within Hell by the time Lady Death stands before his fortress to request an alliance. For you see, Thanatos was placed into lower positions of power most of his life, but even still, had a section of hell carved out for him, a grand fortress along with servants, soldiers, cultists, and worshippers. As it should be no surprise that being the son of the Prince of Lies within hell does come with some perks. So the idea that I want to instill in all of you is that Thanatos, while mediocre in most things, was still feared and lived very comfortably due to his bloodline connection with his father. Some even believe that with Lucifer out of the picture during this time, that Thanatos' rule over the Inferno was the natural progression of power. But of course, this sentiment was not shared by everyone, as Lady Death, being the one to destroy Satanus by shoving him through the nexus of all things, claimed ownership to the realm and would have her endless graveyard consume the land. Now, since I just brought up the endless graveyard and Lucifer's demise as Lady Death seemingly obliterated him, this would be a good time to give you some context of what is going on in hell at this time. A little bit of history that I will definitely be needing to do a separate video on in the future, as it's gonna take some work. But anyways, what you need to know is hell existed as you probably assume. The fiery inferno, tortured souls, lava pits, you name it. But then with the power-up surge of Lady Death, a large portion of the realm would morph itself to reflect this, and instead of fire and brimstone, it became an endless graveyard filled with tombstones and graves. Lightning would fill the sky and the undead would walk the land. And with Lady Death's dark and magnificent castle standing as a focal point to all who enter, Lady Death would rule this realm for hundreds of years, but not without resistance and battle from the neighboring realms, for the Archdukes of Hell still had control over their respective territories, although most were weary to challenge Lady Death. But all was not as it seemed, and Lady Death would be thrown out into the wide cosmos due to the schemes of pagan Hell's Court jester. And with her absence, the endless graveyard slightly crumbled with remnants of what it used to be, and now the chaos would begin. Battles, treachery, bloodshed, I mean absolute chaos in every sense of the word would overcome hell. Lady Death and Lucifer are gone. Heaven seemed to intervene at a time and bestow upon Cremator, who is Lady Death's mentor and best friend, the tools and abilities to become Hell's Guardian, in which he would fight off 2 different invasions. And may I take this time to just fanboy out on Cremator for a second, because he really is one of my all-time favorite characters within the Lady Death mythos, and man, do I miss his presence within her stories. If you guys want to know more about this awesome character, then feel free to check out one of my older videos that I did strictly talking about him, which I will link in the corner or down below. But anyways, back to those invasions I was mentioning. One of them was from several overwhelmingly powerful fallen angels, calling themselves the Trinity of Evil, who came to obliterate the realm once ruled by the one they followed, and who they blamed for their punishment from God. The second would be from an absolute massive army of wraiths, which, let me see here. Wraiths essentially seem to be a species that are a bit more brutish and nomadic than demons. They live on the further outskirts of hell, and I guess with Satanus and Lady Death gone, they felt now would be the time to invade and wipe out their demon counterparts. Even after the Archdukes had combined their strength to help Cremator, they themselves would start fighting over who should control hell. Even some of the lowly demons that had a bit of power would start wars with each other. And sadly, amongst all of this, the third species and actual natives to this realm, the Hellborn, who had existed on this land even before Satanus and his fallen angels were thrown down by Jehovah, were colonized beings and had to endure these power struggles resentfully, just hoping at some point they would be able to take over their home once again and be rid of these foreign invaders. Whew. Okay, sorry guys. That is a speed run of what has occurred in Lady Death's absence. But as I mentioned before I got into all this history, Lady Death has returned. And as we kind of mentioned in the Lady Death Zero video that you can watch up in the corner or down below, she was deemed the chosen one who would decide the outcome of the upcoming judgment war between heaven and hell. And her plan as of now is that hell needs to unite under her for any hope of the realm's survival, which is why she chose to start with Thanatos in her efforts advocating for unity. While he is not the most powerful, it may be what he symbolizes that would make the difficult challenge of uniting hell somewhat accomplishable. Now, Lady Death, along with Cremator and the undead armies of the Endless Graveyard, have marched onto Thanatos' realm. Lady Death demands the guards stand down and that she be allowed to speak to Thanatos. The son of Satan, however, can feel her presence already, or he may have oversight over any part of his realm. Regardless, his voice can be heard within the wind and echoing from his fortress walls.
Enter, Lady Death, if that is truly your desire.
Now, Lady Death's efforts were, as you all can probably imagine, in vain, as her negotiations with Thanatos go nowhere. We see him completely unbothered and unmotivated at best. He enjoys devouring souls of the eternally damned and mentions especially loving the taste of cousins or deceivers who believe that they were innocent or not supposed to be in hell. He even mentions not wanting to exert effort to even get up and prepare his own breakfast. So Thanatos very much is a character who basks in pleasure and perhaps slothfulness. He is unmoved by Lady Death's urgency, he cares very little about the Judgment War, mocks her plan for Hell's unification, and unimpressed with Lady Death's threats. Look at you, stirring up paranoia and prophecy like it matters. You know, my father Satanus could seriously annihilate my high too. Your unification sounds to me like meet the new boss. If you ask me, it sounds exactly the same as the old boss. Lady Death becomes frustrated and replies, Thanatos, the question is not difficult. Are you with me or against me? Before things can escalate, however, Lady Death is ambushed by Lady Demon, who again is another gorgeous and interesting character that I will be getting to in a future video, but that of course will have to be for another time. What I can share with you now is while Lady Death and Lady Demon are duking it out, Thanatos doesn't waste any time in taking advantage of the situation and commands his servant, best friend, or perhaps just partner. Their relationship isn't quite clear, but Thanatos does refer to him as his friend, the Soul Merchant, to take Lady Death's soul now. He also mentions to Lady Death that the Archduke's already anointed him as the leader of Hell. But if I had to guess, this was more than likely done less out of fear or respect for Thanatos, and more of the Archduke's using him as a poster boy fill-in for who is in charge of Hell, while they battle to take over the realm themselves. Not too far off, Cremator, waiting outside, hears Lady Death's cry of struggle and doesn't waste time. He makes quick work of the guards and busts through the walls of Thanatos' fortress with his bare hands to come to the aid of his friend, Lady Death. He takes on the Soul Merchant while Lady Death tries fighting off the attack from Lady Demon and then afterwards plans to deal with Thanatos. Cremator and the Soul Merchant are in the midst of fighting, and Cremator is able to get a good hit in, but the Soul Merchant ends up wrapping Cremator in a form of paralysis with his abilities. However, the Soul Merchant doesn't recognize how out of his league he is until Cremator is able to break free from the Soul Strangle. And in a frantic display of disbelief, the Soul Merchant yells, no one resists, and Cremator simply walks ever closer towards the being.
Soul Merchant, when I finish you, I will be washing your rancid pulp from my gauntlets for days.
But before he can finish off Soul Merchant, the vile creature vanishes and flees the scene.
Coward.
Now on Lady Death's end of things, she utilizes her blade, Nightmare, and strikes Lady Demon, which does cause harm, but shockingly, the blow damages Lady Death as well, confirming that the two beings are very much linked. And that is as far as I will go down that whole rabbit hole, because that is a whole video in itself, and I want to stay focused on Thanatos here, so sorry guys, that'll be coming. But needless to say, Lady Death was down for a minute, and Thanatos goes to finish her off. But she is protected by her cursed blade Nightmare, as the blade fears if Lady Death goes, they won't be able to consume the promised blood of Lady Death's countless enemies. She is able to compose herself, and now, with Lady Demon out of the way, she and Thanatos can engage in battle. This is where we see Thanatos draw his weapon, a powerful blade that is engulfed in flames. Now, combat-wise, Thanatos seems to be pretty formidable and quick, but he doesn't really seem to be packing much power, as Lady Death takes one of his kicks to the stomach head on, with not much problem. We should note, however, that Thanatos is not in his best fighting shape at this point in time, but honestly, I don't think it would make much difference if he was. As the two continue to fight, we get a little insight on Thanatos' past. Apparently, when he was younger, he was known as a decent wrestler, and had competed with many of Hell's champions and archdukes. Thanatos' story of notoriety was that he was able to defeat the Archduke Seer, who is one of the more powerful archdukes of Hell, and sworn rival to that of Cremator. There apparently was an infamous wrestling match between the two, and Thanatos ended up the victor. But as Lady Death would reveal, the victory was not accomplished by skill. Thanatos apparently begged for mercy, and Seer, or Satanus, was laughing so hard he almost started choking. Thanatos took the opportunity to take a dirty shot below the belt and defeated the Archduke Seer. Thanatos doesn't even deny this and simply states, whatever it takes to win. Lady Death then slices off his head, decapitating the son of Satanus. Now, what are some things we can take away from this character? Thanatos' motto seems to be, whatever it takes to win. He is a vile, sneaky, self-centered character. He cares nothing for honor, titles, and has no respect for any type of authority or morality. He had attempted multiple times to defeat Lady Death when she was either distracted or wounded. He mocks the Archdukes of Hell and their titles and traditions. He even showed little concern when Lady Death mentioned that the Judgment War could destroy Hell altogether. He simply couldn't be bothered. It's hard to say what warped his character in this way, but as mentioned, he was a disappointment to his father, and Leviatha, upon seeing her son's head being chopped off, didn't really show much concern either. So the Dark family seems to be a cold one for sure. Thanatos' severed head was still very much alive. It was used to symbolize that those who oppose Lady Death will meet a similar fate, and he would be carried around by one of his servants to observe the destruction of Hell. As the realm slowly starts to crumble away and the inhabitants struggle for survival, shouting for Lady Death to help them, he looks at them with disgust. What a bunch of bimbos. They curse Lady Death with one breath, then pray save me to her with the next. Don't they get it? We're all going to be killed in a climax of annihilation. Why can't they just enjoy it? What? Pagan! Yes, the court jester attacks Thanatos' servant and grabs Thanatos' head. He commends the son of Lucifer for his nihilistic sense of humor and that it almost matches his own. He states, "Hell will rise again, kiddo, and when it does, you're gonna be my ace in the hole." He throws the head into the bag, and that would be the last time we see Thanatos within this version of Hell, as the realm would in fact be evaporated and vanish from existence. We would see Thanatos twice more. For the first instance, we would need to flash forward to the Judgment War. Lucifer was resurrected due to the efforts of his first wife Leviatha, and at some point he had generated a new body for his son Thanatos, as the armies of Hell were needing everyone to fight the forces of heaven. The second time we would come across him would be after Armageddon and the creation of the 8 realms within the aftermath from the unimaginably powerful Lord Chaos. So more into the future, Hell's demons and followers once again are trying to resurrect Lucifer. All the familiar faces are here, such as Astroth, the Grand Duke of Hell, Pagan, Seance, and yes, of course, Thanatos. They are successful in their ritual, and now with Lucifer's presence there before them, Thanatos asks his father about what reward they can expect for being loyal to him. Basically, what's in it for them? Satanus looks at his boy and states that their reward would be to continue to serve him, and that he will correct the mistakes of the past, and that you, Thanatos, were one of those mistakes. He then shoots a power blast directly at his offspring, once again decapitating his son. That brings us to modern times, and with Coffin Comics, we are introduced to Thanatos once again. He is alive and living on Earth, but not only this, he seems to be a part of the Sworn and actually assists in helping humanity from time to time. Now, his reasoning seemed to be for selfish gain, and he enjoys manipulating humanity and doesn't want his fun to end. It is also established that he has his own cultist followers that worship him, and with his father being gone, he seemed to revel in the freedom to do as he pleases and not be tied down with the politics of Hell. He assists the Sworn members with opening a gateway to Hell so that they can bring Lady Death to the surface, as they need her help from an oncoming threat. After they return from their mission in Hell, they find themselves surrounded and ambushed by Halo soldiers, which are essentially combat-trained soldiers who have been turned into extremely dangerous cyborgs. They believe to be humanity's answer to combating the ever-increasing amount of supernatural beings that keep showing up on Earth. But these soldiers have so much nanotechnology and chemicals going through their systems that they have lost a lot of their own humanity themselves. And if any of you are curious, Halo is the experimental tech organization bent on combating the supernatural, and is secretly run by none other than Lady Death's father, Matthias. I will cover them more in depth in another video, and man, I am sorry guys, I feel like I've been saying that a lot in this one, but just think of it as assured content coming your way in the near future, okay? But long story short, the Sworn are beaten for a variety of reasons, and Lady Death's son, Hellslinger, Wargoth the Everkind, Mr. Morrow, and Thanatos are captured to be experimented on, and poor Brock, one of Lady Death's closest friends since her time in Asgard, and who was the blacksmith who created her sword Nightmare, was killed by the cyborg soldier named Gage. Lady Death and the remaining Swarm members would eventually devise a plan to break into Halo and rescue their teammates, but unfortunately for Thanatos, it would be too late. Halo would be draining his very soul and blood from his body. In fact, Gage actually injects Thanatos' blood within himself to see if it would give him the upper edge in a fight with Lady Death. And while it does make him incredibly strong, Lady Death shatters his weapon and overpowers him. As the remaining Swarm members stagger out of the Halo Corporation, we can see Thanatos' lifeless body in the background. Mr. Morrow reports to Lady Death that they were too late to rescue Thanatos, and the machines that were used against him were a combination of cyber technology with some of the darkest of magics. Now, this actually kind of checks out because the magic was more than likely coming from Matthias, and as we've established, he is a dark sorcerer himself. The machine drained his very soul. Wargoth, commenting on this, states that despite differences, Thanatos was an ally this time around. Poor bastard. His daddy Satanus won't be happy he's headed back to hell. And Thanatos has been absent within the pages of Lady Death all these years, until now. Whatever occurred between him and his father, they now seemingly are working together to bring the downfall of our world and, of course, Lady Death in Eternal Sabbath. We will have to wait for Lady Death's most recent chapter to unveil more about Thanatos' fate and perhaps get some insight on what the character has been up to. Also, we've seen the existence of the multiverse within the pages of Lady Death, and so there is always the possibility that this is a Thanatos from another universe. But thank you all again so much for joining me on this exploration and deep dive on everything we know about the character Thanatos, the son of the devil. I was not expecting how much lore surrounds him and was trying not to get distracted because for a minor character, he intertwines with so many other characters and events within Lady Death's story. Definitely not a character that I would hold in high regard, but a despicable and memorable character nonetheless. I think he has deserved his title as the son of Lucifer. Now I turn the conversation to you all. What are your thoughts on Thanatos, his background, or maybe any of the other bits and pieces of the connecting lore we briefly went over? The Halo Corporation, Gage, and the cybernetic soldiers, the Archdukes of Hell, Lord Chaos and the 8 Realms, Cremator becoming Hell's Guardian, and much more. Feel free to ask away, as I always love reading your guys' comments and diving into conversations with you all. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I am Ace. This is The Reckoning, and until next time, take care.